So in what ways does the mind contribute to our health?
Well, our mind, that's such a good question. And it's such a big answer. So I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version, and then we can expand from there. Basically, to understand the impact of mind on health, we need to understand what mind is. And the easiest way to understand mind is it's the difference between being dead and alive. And that's your most basic example. So if you think of what's the difference between you and I being alive and a dead person, it's our mind, it's our aliveness. And in our aliveness is our ability to respond and to react, to respond to life. And in that responding, we are thinking, feeling, and choosing. So mind is how we think and feel and choose. And we're doing it all the time, 24/7. You wake up with your mind, you eat with your mind, you do your exercise with your mind, you converse with your mind, you listen to this live with your mind. Your mind is always working. You go to bed with your mind. I mean, you don't think about it in that way. So if your mind is always going, that means your mind is a driving force and it's not the brain. And therefore your mind plays an enormous role when it comes to mental and physical health because it is the driving force behind the mental and the physical state of a person. So another way of looking at it is if I use some little props, I'm always using these little props. There's your brain and body. Your brain and body is the physical, which is easy to understand. But that only makes up around about 1% of who we are as humans, which is not very much. Very important. But what drives this? Because the difference between, as I said, a dead person and a live person is the mind. So this would just disintegrate if we dead. Okay. So, but if you're alive, what is the force that's keeping it alive? And there's a lot of research around the gravitational fields and quantum physics and electromagnetics, right back to Einstein's work and earlier, showing that humans have a gravitational field around them that's unique to a human. And that actually is our mind. So on the physics science level, we have these gravitational fields that move through the brain and the body, and the brain and the body respond. And on a psychological level, it is our thinking, feeling, and choosing. That is what that field is doing. So right now, we're using our mind to think, feel, and choose in response to the conversation. And that's so the conversation is being received by our mind, and there's all this physics happening, and the brain responds, and my words and your words and our conversation are being built into the brain responds and builds it in genetically, chemically, etc., as little thought trees inside of our brain that look like little trees. And that's specifically the root part, which is what I'm saying. So the roots, like as a tree has roots and branches, a thought that you build is going to have roots and branches. So we're discussing mind, brain, mental health, whatever. That would be the name of the thought. And the information that I'm giving is at the base. So in terms, and then the branches are your interpretation, your thoughts, feelings, and choices about that. And then this whole thing is how you show up. So that's easy to understand from the healthy side. Now here I've got a toxic tree. So let's say that you're experiencing a toxic situation. Maybe you're around toxic people and they're constantly toxic, or you've had toxic trauma from the past, or you've got these certain patterns in your life that are toxic. That whatever the way you show up in that toxic way or that toxic experience is not just random. It's coming from something. So everything we experience is the root. Like I said, as the experience now, as I'm talking, that forms the root and you grow the branches. But this is a positive experience. A negative experience would be built in the same way. As you go through maybe the trauma, the abuse, whatever it is, that is the origin story. That's the roots. And then the perspective is the tree trunk, and the how you think, feel, and choose your specific interpretation of that is in the branches and the leaves. And this is all real physical stuff in the brain. But now this is toxic because the proteins are folded incorrectly, the balance is incorrect, the chemicals flow, et cetera, the electromagnetics, etc. Everything about this is distorted. So the brain's immune system recognizes this as a threat. So then it sends out immune factors in the form of like T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, macrophages, in exactly the same way as it responds to something like the COVID virus. So it's easy to understand the COVID virus creates an immune response, but it's not so easy to think our thoughts do. So we have to understand that thoughts are real things. They have physical structure. They're made of proteins. They are inside our brain. We built them in response to life. There's the root story and there's the origin, what happened, and that's our interpretation. So these are real, and the immune system responds. And if we don't manage the inflammation that then occurs, because the immune system is trying to get rid of this, like it would try and get rid of a virus because it's threatening the survival. But if you don't respond, you then have a cascade effect through your hormone system, through basically every system of your body. So then the entire environment of your brain and body is now threatened by that toxic thought, and which has been built by your mind, and you've created an environment within your whole body that has an increased vulnerability to disease by 35 to 98%, and obviously also then mind challenges. So that's how important mind is. I mean, it's a long answer, but that's how important mind is. We should be paying way more attention to the actual force that's driving us as humans.
Yeah, that was a really helpful example to be able to see the different trees too, and just exactly how kind of a toxic mind can lead to like toxic health overall. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
a helpful example to be able to see.